if this is that moment for Ron, it's such a dumb fight to have with Byron Donalds, a fellow very conservative Republican from Florida who supports virtually every initiative of DeSantis. The one difference being that Byron Donalds happens to be a person of color, and he thinks, as many others do, that this one line was dumb to include. DeSantis could take a step back, listen to what Donalds had to say, at least show respect for his opinion, even if he says, I disagree with him. Or he could decide that he needs this fight, and maybe do what Fonzie did. Joining us now, John Ziegler, conservative commentator and host of the Death of Journalism podcast. John, good to see you here. You have long been a Ron DeSantis supporter. I should say long. You've been a Ron DeSantis supporter. Am I overreacting here in your opinion, or is this just a horrible decision that DeSantis is trying to have this fight with Donalds?
Well, I agree that this is a bad fight to have for slightly different reasons. As far as the jump the shark, I love the graphic. I actually think that the real jump shark moment was when DeSantis said that RFK Jr. might be part of his administration. That, to me, was a real jump the shark moment as a conservative supporter of Ron DeSantis. Well, I want to push back a little bit on your assessment of how this story began, because I think that the mainstream media was not nearly as rational as you were in your analysis of this. So I think the mainstream media effectively allied themselves with Vice President Harris, and they created, I believe, mostly a bogus, false narrative. And the DeSantis campaign was right to push back against that. Now, with Donalds, here's where the definition of team gets interesting. Dan, as you know, there's nothing the media likes more than if someone on your team admits you were wrong, right? Because that is proof that you were wrong and they were right. Well, Donalds, as a Republican from Florida, who happens to be black, is seen as having great credibility on this issue. I get it from the media's perspective, but they're forgetting an important part of this equation. He's a Trump supporter who is on the short list to be Donald Trump's vice presidential nominee. So I think he saw this brush fire going on, and he goes, oops, I can't believe I just put some gasoline on this poor brush fire. I wonder what's going to happen in the media narrative about this. I mean, so Donalds knows what he's doing. He's playing the media. Trump is loving this. I'm sure Trump patted him on the back. And DeSantis is seen as the loser here because when you have a failing campaign, everything is perceived through that lens. And in a little bit, this is like blaming the captain of the Titanic for what music the band is playing as the ship begins to sink. It's kind of irrelevant.
This was Donald's reaction to the criticism. He says, what's crazy to me is I express support for the vast majority of the new African-American history standards and happen to oppose one sentence that seemed to dignify the skills gained by slaves as a result of their enslavement. I mean, it just seems to me the better strategy would have been to just ignore Donalds and just fight with Kamala Harris.
I agree with that. I think what they were trying to do, and they didn't do it properly, was to continue this narrative that Donald Trump and Team Trump is continuing to forward liberal media narratives when they think it's in their benefit to attack DeSantis. He did that on Disney. He's done that on COVID, Coors Light, and now on this Florida slavery situation. And one last thing, Dan, I think one of the lessons we're learning here is that incumbency is actually a disadvantage to Ron DeSantis. I thought it was going to be an advantage to be in power when everyone else is basically unemployed, but he's being held accountable to a degree that I think is basically insane and makes it almost impossible for him to gain traction in this race.
Interesting analysis. That's why we have him on. John Ziegler, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.